Destroy the towers. The towers have been destroyed. Enemy ultimate. Enemy double kill.
Tired.
Enemy triple kill. Your tower has been destroyed.
Riola. Everyone, push mid.
Your tower has been destroyed. An enemy has been defeated. An ally has been defeated.
Walking on sunshine.
Retreat.
Some like it hot.
Rally.
An enemy has been defeated.
Watch out. Summertime fun. Kindness has fallen into the abyss.
You have defeated an enemy. Enemy ultimate. Shut down. Shut down. Ultimate.
Retreat.
Walking on sunshine.
Your team has destroyed a tower. Your tower has been destroyed. Your team has destroyed a tower.
Walking on sunshine.
An ally has been defeated.
Retreat.
Onslaught. An enemy has been defeated.
around.